Instagram days or the TikTok
Yeah.
days. Okay, I'm gonna just quickly hide you and then do a quick intro. Hey everybody, back again. Truth Network, Stefan Rust here, founder of Laguna Labs, the builders behind things like the Truth Network, Truflation, and Nuon. And the lead behind Nuon today is going to be the guest. And we'll go into what Nuon is. You've heard about it on the channel a lot. We've been talking about it. And I just want to highlight what that's about and what we're building there and what Cameron and his team are leading. So super excited to share that and give you a bit more insight. But before I go there, just quickly again, remember, we've been talking about Truflation. You've heard a lot. You've heard a lot about Truth Network. And all of these products are built on top of the Truth Network, which has Truth token as the utility token to give you access to the calculation agent. And all these apps that are building on there are developer generated financial services that are being created. And so Truth Network acts as this calculation agent using real world data, real world information, as well as on-chain information to be able to calculate and ensure and guarantee the accuracy associated with the calculation based on the methodology. So here you can see up here in the top, very briefly, you've got here Nuon. And so we're going to cover off Nuon in this conversation. So I'm going to invite Cam onto this chat and into here. And here we go. Hey there, Cam. Thanks for coming,
Hey,
man.
what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, we talk to each other like nearly every day, sort of on where you're getting and how you're progressing and how you're managing the team. But I think you're getting there, right? You're pretty close to having launched Nuon and nearly it actually being pretty much live now, right? Or get very close to it.
We are extremely close. We're just getting the last Oracle set up, the last tweak to the audit. I think we passed the audit okay. Everything's good with that. Yeah, just literally just the last little tweaks, and it goes live very soon. So it's exciting.
And so maybe give everybody a bit of background in terms of your background and how you got to Nuon and sort of just your crypto experience and why you're so excited about, user generated finance, right? So, and building financial applications.
Yeah, I'm ridiculously excited about this. It might be boring to a lot of people, but to me, it's like the most exciting thing ever. Like I forget when it was, but I moved to Japan 2015, something like that, and had to make a new network of friends and had a lot of spare time. And I spent a lot of that spare time researching and stuff, and I just learned about how the money works and wasn't really happy with what I learned. And then Bitcoin, got into Bitcoin, and okay, this looks like a solution. And I was really excited about Bitcoin. But as excited as I was about Bitcoin, I'm like triple excited by DeFi,
Yeah.
decentralized finance, because this is where just so much changes, right? It's not just the base currency now, but like so many things like capital is so important, right? And how it's used and all of this. And we've got all this too big to fail and all this shenanigans going on, right? And you look at every time there's a massive downturn, DeFi is doing just fine. It's
Yeah.
it's working exactly as planned. And that plus the permissionless aspect. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's why I'm so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think I mean, you've also had a lot of experience working at different crypto companies, and also you helped build out Truflation, and ultimately you're now very heavily focused on Nuon, right? And so,
Yeah.
Bitcoin.com and stuff like that. But you're
Yeah.
also a very, you're sort of very pro Ethereum. You
Yeah.
see all the liquidity, I think, on Ethereum, smart
Yeah.
contract capabilities on Ethereum, and that's sort of why. Yeah, I mean, you're pretty excited about DeFi, as you said, right? It sort of came out of Ethereum.
Yeah. Yeah, I see all the other things going on. Don't get me wrong, I love my meme coins. Meme coins are super fun. But all the things going on, all the different, GameFi, SocialFi, these might be super interesting things. But for me, it's just finance. And that's on Ethereum.
So yeah, I mean, maybe you want to share where you're at. I mean, a lot of the truthers are out there, very interested in Nuon, and they've heard about it for a number of times now. And maybe you want to just give some background in terms of Nuon itself and how it came about, and yeah, where you're at.
Yeah. So we launched version one of Nuon, and it was okay. But frankly, just we had to deal with. For those of you who don't know, Nuon is an inflation-proof stablecoin. That was the original plan. So basically, just Truflation that you're seeing all day, every day, eroding away at our money. We wanted to see one that was, a stable coin that's inflation proof. And so that's where we started. But we built V1 with like a CDP model similar to like DAI and Liquidity. And it just didn't work. It's not what we need to actually get the yields that we need. So for version two, we we started from scratch. We just started like, let's do this right. And it's it's powered by a decentralized yield engine that is managed by the holders of the Nuance strategy token, so a governance type token that actually decides where those yields come from. But what's important to me, and I think you and I talked about this, what's most important is as a holder of Nuon,
Yeah.
you convert USDC to Nuon and you are done. You don't have to hold an open position, check for liquidations, anything like that. It's done. So you go in and out of Nuon as you like. So the user experience was crucial to this,
Yeah.
which is also why, people tried it, this flat coin concept, but they did a floating peg, and we did a changing peg as well with version one. But really, the rebasing token, this is another thing where we're really doing a user experience. You keep the ability to convert one to one. It looks like a dollar, but you earn more Nuon as the year goes through. So that's what it's like on the user side. Yeah, and here you go. This is what it looks like to actually just, you can take USDC, put it in, you get Nuon out. It's one to one. That's the experience.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I mean, so again, if you just want inflation protection, you're just interested in insurance that against inflation, then basically it's super easy, right? I mean, it's so impressive how I can just put my USDC here, and then I can receive my Nuon. I can stake my Nuon if I like, and earn an additional 9.1% APY on top of it, if that's correct, right?
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's on testnet, so I think it's going to be a little higher than that. But yeah, something like
Even
that.
higher. So not only do you get inflation adjustment, is that including the inflation adjustment or on top of?
The way we display it is probably going to be on top of, and it's
On
always going to
top of.
depend on market. Right now, today, as we're recording this, yields are quite low.
Lower, yeah.
But yeah,
And then for those that want to move it around faster, cheaper, and hypothecate the tokens, you can wrap it as well, right? So you can and interact with a lot more DeFi protocols with the wrapped Nuon, so it becomes a lot easier to move
yep,
around. But I think to
exactly.
your point, right? I think what is underappreciated is really the complexities in what is underneath this simple interface, right? Making it simple is usually a lot more complicated than actually
Yes.
just yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a lot more challenging, right? And so you've built out all of this back end here that is all non-custodial. It's all on chain, managed by smart contracts. Yeah, so to your point, when that US dollar comes in, what happens to the US dollar? And ultimately, where does the yield come from? If you can't, I mean, so one of the things is if the yield's not coming, if you can't explain where the yield's coming from, it's coming from me, right? So giving you the USDC. And so I think here you've done a really good job in trying to explain where the yield's coming from and how it's calculated. Maybe you want to share some insight around that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this just today. I don't know if this is actually going to stick, but like an idea to explain it. Nuon is almost, you can see it as a simple way to get into DeFi. So, to be actively working in DeFi right now means you have to know all the cool things that are coming out, pay attention to the yields, deposit there, check the security, make sure that they're audited, make sure it's good. With Nuon, we separate this. Once your USDC goes in, We do keep a buffer of 20% so that you can always get in and out easily, and that buffer stays full. The rest is deposited into DeFi protocols. Like we've got some list here: iPoor, Aerodrome, Aave, these kinds of things, XtraFi. And who manages that? It would be no fun, and it wouldn't really be DeFi if I was managing that. You know, so what we actually have is it is the people who hold the strategy token are they're going to be the ones doing all the research. They're going to know where is the best place to put the money, what has the highest risk, what doesn't. And so they actually manage where things go. So the community is managing what that USDC turns into. And that's where the yield comes from.
So that's sort of 20% go is a buffer, right? So what is the buffer? Is that just what does that resemble? What is that for?
Yeah, so if we put all the money into these DeFi protocols, some of them we might have to take time to get out of. And so we want to make sure that everybody can redeem whenever. So we keep this
Okay.
buffer of 20%. It's put in Aave, so it's easy to get in and out, but it is still earning yield.
Yeah. That's great. And then how does this work? So how do you decide which pools up here to use? And what this allocation is to those respective pools.
All right, so here's where it gets, I don't know, for me, I'm kind of a nerd, but this is where it gets very exciting to me. I'll start with how you get in. How does a pool get into Nuon? The system is completely permissionless. Anybody, you don't even have to be a governance token holder, anybody can suggest a pool. The difference is we do kind of a backwards governance. Instead of there's what, 2% of people actively participating in governance. In our case, we do it backwards.
Okay.
It is
Interesting.
approved by default, which sounds super scary, right? So you could say like, hey, I want Pepe coin, in there. I want that in the pool. Well, you can, and it's approved by default. It just takes a very small percentage of voting power to veto it. And we also have you have to pay a fee to actually propose something to make sure we don't get spammed. So to get a pool in reality, you have to go through a pretty rigorous discussion with people in the governance and actually make sure
Yep.
everyone likes what you're doing.
And is there a risk sort of reward ratio that the protocol looks for? But by the sounds of it, anybody can put up a very high rewarding pool. Yet, obviously, the higher the reward, the greater the risk. Is there generally a threshold that the protocol is looking for?
Yeah, I think this is going to come about naturally. The way the incentives are built is if you are allocated, and we'll get into allocating next, but if you are allocated to a risky pool, you are saying, hey, I want to get into this one. And let's say it's paying back really well. You're actually going to reap the rewards of that, even if it's risky. But if it gets wiped out, you lose your funds first. Like, yes, there's no too big to fail here. It's all on the people governing, right? Um, and so
So
again,
it's
this is super
basically
exciting.
like you're a sort of a liquid fund that is actually you, and you are a participant in that liquid fund.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I can propose new investment strategies, new investment ideas, and at the same time, I also participate in the success as well as the risk associated with the participation in the overall strategies that I'm looking to deploy.
Yeah, it's like you can almost think of Nuon and the backend as like a neutral platform. The
Yeah,
incentives are set up, it's permissionless, you can do your thing, but Nuon is neutral. It
yeah.
doesn't really care. You want to go high risk. So when we first started, I was freaking out. How are we going to stop Terra Luna, you know, from getting in here? UST. But then I thought about it more and more, and I realized we want the best of the best managing this. I think it's gonna go towards that. Those are gonna be the people making the most money. So my thought is, if you're able to get into Luna, UST on the platform, for example, bring in 20%, let's say that's the highest yields. If you're able to do that and get out before it crashes, as crazy and risky as this sounds, I would never do this strategy. But if you're able to do that, you should be able to profit from that. If you fail and you miss it, you get wiped out.
Wipe down. Interesting. Yeah, and so that's really tied to the new mint holders, right? And new mint is the
Yeah.
sort of strategic token up here that helps on the decision. And I need to stake. How does the voting power with my new, is it 1-to-1, or do I need to stake it? The longer I stake it, the more voting power I get. How does the voting power align with the actual token, the strategy token itself?
Yeah, so you got it right. It's basically you stake it, and the longer you stake it for, I think we're at 1 year for the maximum time. We're not doing 4 years like Curve or some of these others.
Yeah.
But it's like 1 year you stake. That gives you 1-to-1. One new mint equals
Okay.
one voting
Yeah.
power, and then that goes down. I think 3 months, if I remember correctly, is at 25%. But with your voting power, you're going to see all these pools. We have a selection of 3 in this graphic right here, but you could imagine
Yeah.
maybe 10 pools, right? And what you're going to do, hopefully often, but the protocol rebalances at least once a week, you're going to go in and you're going to change, and you're going to see, okay, iPore's got 16%, Airdrome's got 15%. I'm going to allocate more to iPore, right? To make sure you're getting more yields. Or you might think to yourself, Extrafy, I don't know much about them. Maybe I'm going to allocate a little less until I do an audit or something like that.
Yeah.
For example, right?
Yeah.
Each person is doing this individually. And then the protocol aggregates everybody's voting power. And at the end, that decides how it allocates the funds.
And so one of the things is, sort of we've seen in sort of governance models in the traditional world, right, where there's just always new governance on top of each other, right? And so
Mm.
it just stacks up. And in some of the protocols, the older the protocol, the longer the list is of various pools or vaults that people can participate in. How do you see at Nuon that avoiding that, right? So you don't just have clutter. There may be old vaults there that actually are generating zero revenue, zero yield, but they're still in the list. Do they get eliminated from the dashboard? Do they have time limits, or how is that managed?
Well, this isn't available on the front end yet because it's not a problem just yet. But yes, the protocol can remove inactive
Okay.
vaults or vaults that are
Yeah.
deemed too risky.
Yeah, because I mean, you go to some of these protocols. I mean, it's like pages and pages and pages of vaults. So you then have to have a search. You find it, and it's some obscure element, but which ultimately could be really interesting. But on the flip side, yeah, it's very challenging to discover and find, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Yeah, no, I think, and then sort of explain also, sort of, I think we saw on the front end of the website where we were talking how, I mean, great user experience, super nice front end, but we had the staking of Nuon. What is the benefit of staking Nuon? What does that reward, and why would I stake my Nuon if it's, for
Yeah. So,
APY, I get that, but yeah,
so the thought is, when we start this, the people who are going to engage with this is probably going to be people who are comfortable with DeFi, right? That's
yeah.
going to be the first people who go in. But the end result is we're looking for something that anybody can hold. Any user should be able to hold this and not feel scared about crypto or anything like that. It's just a stable coin that goes up. You know what I mean, with yields. So rather than just going raw directly to all these protocols, we have layers of risk protection. For example, we have a backstop that is we can go into a little bit later. And one of the things is by staking Nuon, you actually take on a little extra risk in case the protocol were to have a shortfall. But as a reward for that, you get more of the yields above inflation. And to incentivize people to get in early, we're actually going to be giving out quite a bit of the governance token as well. So early participants are going to make probably pretty tasty yields just for staking.
Nice. Yeah, and so to your point here, right? So here you can see you can stake your Nuon, and for that risk, you obviously are earning some additional APY. This is just fictional numbers. This is still all on testnet. The numbers will evolve once the protocol goes live, which is imminent. So that's pretty exciting. And to your point, you highlighted the strategies here, right? So here you can actually see an overview of what's going on in the protocol. You can see some of the proposals put forward, which you can, if I'm correct, I can veto down here if I don't like it. Otherwise, it gets
Exactly.
accepted, right?
That's right.
Um, Here, obviously, you need to stake your positions, which ultimately is giving you the voting power. You have a nice spreadsheet and table that then highlights your positions across the stake, timing, voting power, etc. And then this is how you've allocated your voting power across the different strategies. And here you can put forward new proposals and they get accepted automatically if they're not vetoed, right? And I guess these
Right.
proposals are the ones that end up down here as well. Once,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. Once the next epoch comes up or something.
Yes.
Um, and then you can see analytics across the protocol, the performance of the actual asset allocation. And here, the famous backstop. And you were talking about the backstop.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe share a bit because I think that's the interesting element, right? Because I think one thing that a lot of people forget is there are times when yields in crypto land aren't actually 14% or
Yeah.
10%, right? The yields will then drop to maybe 1% or 2%. And in that event, if inflation is 2.6%, where does the reward and the inflationary protection to Nuon holders come from? And I think this is the brilliance behind Nuon.
Yeah. So the backstop is where a portion of the yields will go to this, and these will be in the assets that you talked about. I don't have the exact list in front of me, but something like Bitcoin, tokenized oil, SPX, these kinds of things. And this gives us the ability, exactly like you said, because it's going to happen. There's going to come a time when yields are low and inflation is high, and we need to make sure that we can cover that.
Yeah, so yeah, that's really so. You got gold, you got oil, maybe some SPX, some S&P 500s, maybe even Bitcoin in there as well, right? And so I
Mm.
think those are all inflation correlated assets, which I think is really interesting, right? What are inflation correlated assets? If inflation goes up, generally the trend is people look at these assets as safe havens, and so they increase in value as well. And there are possibly other ETFs that could go in there or indexes, asset backed indexes that are highly liquid that could also go in there, generating the right kind of yields as they, improve in, appreciate in value associated with inflation as well.
Exactly.
That's really cool, and yeah, look forward to seeing that. And so, where are you at in the project, and sort of from a timeline perspective, how's yeah, sort of when can we start seeing some activities? I think you've already started some marketing around this. Yeah, where can people go to find out more? Stay tuned about launches and timelines, and what can people do today?
Yes. So we definitely need help getting the word out. We have started with the marketing, and we need to supercharge that. That's where a lot of my thought is at the moment, getting the word out about all this cool stuff. A lot of what you see on the screen right there. In fact, let me just take a quick look. Everything you see there should be good to go in about a week
Wow.
live. Yeah, we're about a week away. I feel confident
Wow, that's
in that.
amazing.
Yeah, I don't see any reason it will get delayed, but sometimes. But
You
it
never
should
know.
should be good. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's where we're at.
But you've
And
done the
I don't know.
audits already, right? You've done the
Yes.
audits. All of the audits are done. It's complete. I guess it's just some of the front end sort of interfaces and interactions with the smart contracts
Yeah.
that are
And we
being
also
tweaked for better user experience. Or
Yeah, you got it right. Exactly. Except we're also doing a little bit while we were waiting on one last thing from the audit. We were also doing some advanced testing. Like we've been
yeah,
testing this like crazy the whole time in development, but we're our goal is to make the safest possible product. This is a stable coin, and if it's not stable, I mean, come on, like that's in the name, right? So we've done some additional testing, and that's going to make me feel a lot more comfortable when we actually go out with this. Actually,
And I think,
yeah,
yeah,
go. Well, I'd like to
no, I
kind of
think you,
jump into the future.
yeah.
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to highlight to the users that there is a limited yield opportunity for a during a controlled initial deployment period, right? So I think you've got a 6 week or 8 week period where people can benefit from early participation and much higher yields, right? You're getting 40 to
Yes.
50% yield for participating early on. It's very limited, so only few participants can come in. Up to $10 million is the max cap, and so yeah, you can see it's all documented here. I think this, this is so. Yeah, you get 30% if you come in late, and if you come in a bit earlier, you get and lock it up for 6 weeks. You get 42 and 38% APY if you come into the second tranche. So
Yes.
yeah, it's very attractive. Where
And
can
actually,
people
anyone,
sign it? Yeah, go
that's what I
ahead.
was just going to get to. Anyone watching this right now, if you wanted to get in on that little alpha here, just go to vip.nuon.fi, and that'll take
Okay,
you right to it, and you can
let's
sign up.
go there. Here, let's just see VIP. Here we go. Yeah, boom. Here you go. Yeah, this is where you go. So vip.nuon.fi and sign up here.
That's
Join
right.
Nuon's exclusive invite guarded launch, right? So you can put in who recommended you. Cam recommended you in this case. You got it here. Amount you want to deposit, you can then choose. Minimum deposit though for this initial launch is $1,000. That's I think the requirement, right? I saw that on the
Yeah.
document there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and here where to reach you when it's time, so you can put in an email or a telegram or a Twitter handle,
Whatever you
whatever you want to
like.
do.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions, and then you just submit that form. So super easy, very cool.
And do
Yeah,
feel free
no,
to add questions if you want. Anyone filling this out, feel free to add questions, because the reason this is here is because we want to find out, like, what are you asking? I think we've got good questions, but yeah, please do.
there you go. Add your questions. Yeah, no, no, awesome. Yeah, so tell us about the future, Cam. What are you excited about? I think you've got some other plans in the works for the protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah, what excites you?
So I think really the part where again, getting into DeFi and finance, and again, I got into Bitcoin. I love memes. All all the ICO craziness. I've been through all this stuff, but and again, this is going to sound super nerdy, but it's just the truth. What excites me the most right now is we're all fighting it out over like a tenth of a percent of extra yield.
Yeah,
Everyone's just fighting it. So it's really aggressive and it's really interesting. And when we're starting with only battle tested, well-known DeFi protocols.
yeah,
Just right, simple stuff. And our yields, therefore, will be competitive, but it's still going to be just what everybody else is doing. As we start building out more advanced vaults, our yields, I believe, are going to increase above what the average person's getting. And my goal is to be able to give a yield on the Nuon stablecoin that is competitive, very competitive with the rest of the market, that has the same risk level, which should be as very low, if nothing, as we have now. So that part really excites me, these advanced yield strategies. And coming back to what you were saying, I'd say probably this is further down the road, but again, this really gets me going. Is RWAs are coming on chain. I'm one of the crazy ones that considers USDC an RWA, right? And I think the world just fell in love
yeah,
with it,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so yeah, there's the trust and all these problems. We have to talk about that, and we have to deal with that. It's not going to be super easy, but eventually things like tokenized commodities are going to be on chain, and we're going to be able to trade them just easy. And the backstop, which works now, is great, but we're going to be able to put actually assets in the vault that are volatile. And so where you might be earning, maybe DeFi is giving 2% yield at this time, inflation might start ramping up. Things like food, housing, oil, these tend to go up faster than CPI. So we should be able to outpace inflation considerably when these tokenized RWAs come on chain and these commodities. And so that's further down the road, but this platform allows for that. And that's what gets me going.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we'd love to. I mean, obviously, I think that's our vision in terms of, and ultimately, the Truth Network is here to provide indexes that can provide a specific yield and opportunity for such yield with real world assets, real estate. You can get,
Yeah,
sort of, and you can bet long on Dubai versus Miami
yeah, yeah,
versus Austin versus, Buenos Aires, or go short on Paris, right? Sell your Paris positions. And so those are all elements that can sort of be built in, which is really exciting. I think the other exciting thing
yeah.
is you're trying to also be somewhat chain agnostic, right? So that
Yes.
it's the treasury is above or below each of the chains, and helping then thereby manage your liquidity across different chains and pool the appetite for investing in Nuon and some of these vaults across the different chains.
Yeah, the multi-chain vision, without getting into too much detail, the multi-chain vision is, let's say you're a user on Base and you like Base. People tend to land on their chains that they like, or you're an Arbitrum guy. You should be able to, on the Nuon app, on Arbitrum, manage funds on the Ethereum change, on the chain, allocate funds on the
Yep.
Arbitrum or Base chain, right? It's going to
Yep.
be completely chain agnostic. This is in the roadmap for this year. And yeah, you should be able to take advantage of yields on different chains. We just have to do a little bit of tweaking just to make sure that there's no added risk from that, but it's solvable.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really, I think, what's exciting. And again, to your point right at the beginning around UX making it super easy. So if I have USDC on Arbitrum and I want to get Nuon on Base, I can then manage that through the
Exactly.
platform. Or there's a better yield vault on Ethereum generating 15% APY versus on Arbitrum generating 10% APY. Where do I allocate the rewards, and how do I manage and have those in the nuanced strategies, right?
Yeah, because every time you allocate, you're going to have to pay gas fees. Every time
Yeah,
you go through this,
too,
right?
right.
Some people might be comfortable with that on Ethereum, but some
Yeah,
people
yeah.
might rather do that on Base and just save a few bucks.
And that's an interesting element, right? I mean, we were on a call jointly the other day, and what we were learning was that a lot higher yield on Ethereum is largely due to higher gas fees. So people don't actually move their tokens around as much due to the gas fees. And so
Yeah,
the yields ultimately become higher because you've got a slightly longer period of, you're staking it for a slightly longer period.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely Ethereum's definitely the king of DeFi. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
see it dethroned anytime soon.
But it's funny, right? Because I found the analogy to high frequency trading is happening on the other chains, whereas
Right,
the
right.
big, the big
Yeah,
yielding liquidity sits and resides on the Ethereum chain, which I thought was
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, and why have to choose? Why would you want to choose? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
take advantage of all of it.
And so where do you see Bitcoin layer twos coming in, and how do you see that? Have you looked into that?
I'm going to be completely honest. Uh, you and I were working on Bitcoin a while ago. I'm still a Bitcoin fan, but it bores me to tears. There's nothing happening there. Uh,
Yeah.
but but when Bitcoin L2s come, this is the dream. If you can lock up Bitcoin and
Yeah.
then do all that you can do on Ethereum and Solana and Sui, right? With Bitcoin staked, this is going to be amazing. And then my attention will probably move that direction. I know they're working on it, but I want to see some. I want show me the money.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. No, I was just, yeah, anyways, I think there's some interesting DeFi projects trying to roll out on Bitcoin. Yeah, and ultimately it's going to take it's time to grow.
Yeah,
But they're
but
going to
it's
be
going to be
working on
amazing.
it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
going to be amazing.
I'm bullish. I'm definitely bullish.
Bullish, right? Yeah, I think we're all bullish. These are the new financial rails, and these are the types of user generated financial applications that are being built on the Truth Network, but also across the crypto rails. That's why
Yeah,
we built these new blockchain rails so that everybody can participate in such opportunities and get involved, which in the past have not been able to. And that's the beauty and that's the use case that
Yeah.
everybody sort of disses or doesn't acknowledge, but these are significant use cases, and empowering a lot of different people around the world to participate in financial innovation.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that DeFi is going to eat all traditional finance over time. And products like Nuon couldn't exist without Truflation and the data that they provide. Like we wouldn't have Nuon if it weren't for the data feeds that you guys give. So yeah, it's vital.
So to your point, Cam, where we know people have to go to vip.nuon.fi to sort of come
Yes.
in and explore the guarded launch. How can they follow what's going on with Nuon, stay up to speed on all the new activities, and how can they follow you and get your insights in terms of where you are trying to move the needle towards?
Yeah, I'd say probably the best places to go now are the Telegram and Twitter. This is where we've got the most activity at the moment. Both handles are Nuon Finance, one word, no
Yeah,
spaces or dashes. And you'll find me in the Telegram group and probably commenting on the yeah, I'll be in there. I'm always
awesome.
on
Well,
Twitter.
thank you, and I'm sure we'll do this again when it goes live, and I hope and I'm sure you'll be doing your own news and feeds as well over time. So
For
that's
sure.
going to be really good and exciting to see how Nuon progresses. Yeah, so everybody, there you go. That's Nuon coming to you, and there's going to be some other interesting announcements associated with Nuon. So follow, stay tuned, and participate in
Yeah.
interesting yield opportunities that, yeah, allow you to participate in the risk reward ratios. But in all cases, do your own research, read the white paper. And if you're too bored and too lazy to read the white paper, download the white paper or just copy the link, go to Notebook LM, Google, and then they will create a podcast just around the white paper for
That's the
you. So
way.
you can just listen at 2 speed, 1 speed, or whatever speed you like. So thank you, Cam.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. This is
And
great.
see
Thanks,
you.
guys,
Hope
for
you got
listening.
everybody enjoyed this. And we will see you again on Tuesday next week. Same time, same place. Have a happy weekend and talk to you guys later. Bye.
Yeah.